Are we live? Okay. Can you hear me, Andrew?
Yes, Brian.
Oh, thank you. All right, welcome to the Marshfield Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. This is a hybrid meeting, so if you're dialing in on a phone, please use star to mute and unmute yourself. We're being taped by MCTV, and we don't have to do a roll call, everyone's here. So we're gonna start with 2461, Town of Marshfield, Harbor Master. The petitioner is seeking a variance under 305-1011 of the Marshfield Municipal Code for relief from 305-602, site plan approval under 305-1202, and special permits under 305-1012 and 305-1301 3A to remove the existing pile held float system and and to have an 8-foot by 14-foot deck and ramp for access to a pile held 10 by 60-foot relocated float system, and second 10-foot by 38-foot ramp and an 8-foot by 12-foot L-shaped deck located at Damon Point revetment site on the North River, located at the end of Damon's Point Road, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel E190309 and maps E20 and F20 as located in the R1 zoning district. Name and address for the record.
Pat Brennan, PGB Engineering, 49 Tupelo Road, Marshfield, here with Harbor Master DeMayo for this project. The main purpose of this project is to relocate, there's 3 floats connected out there right now, a total of 8 feet by 60 feet long, 8 feet wide. We're looking, one of the things we need to do is permit this through Chapter 91, and the state's been on us to do that. So while we were doing that, we figured we'd do some reconfiguration out there. And what the Harbor Master would like to do is kind of swing the floats out to the north a little bit, get them in a little deeper water. The main reason for that is the regulatory agencies, and namely marine fisheries, at low tide, they want at least 30 inches of water underneath the floats, so we need to move them out to actually get that 30 inches of water. In doing that, back in, I believe it was about 2014, the DPW had a project down here where they rebuilt the revetment, constructed a concrete ramp down to where the existing gangway is that goes to the float now. In order for us to make that gangway connection work, we need to put a little deck there to get that angle out there to get out to the float. So that's the reason for that deck. We're not making any revisions to the concrete ramp. That's all existing. While we were doing this, the Harbor Master decided that it would be good to have a little bit more of a viewing area out in front of, on top of the revetment, kind of seaward of what's there now. So what we're proposing is a 10-foot by 38-foot, basically a deck off the end of the what's there now, and then a turn with an L, come back 8 feet by 12 feet, and that would all be at grade with what's out there right now. So that portion of it would all be handicapped accessible. That would all be pile supported. What we would do is we'd put a break in the railing that's there so you can get out there in 2 locations. It will also help, it will assist with emergency response down there. That's one of the places where if there's an accident in the rivers, this is one of the places where emergency personnel gain access to the rivers. This will allow for a larger staging area down there in the event that something like that happens. So we did submit, as was read in the advertisement, for 2 special permits, site plan approval and a variance. I know that we did receive comments from both town council and the building commissioner. What we submitted for was a variance for from 305 6.02 from the dimensional setback requirements from streets. because these are all within both the railroad right-of-way, the former railroad right-of-way, and then on the tidelands of the Massachusetts tidelands in the river. So we do cross property lines, it crosses property lines now, so we're looking for a variance just to continue that. The special permits that we're looking for is, one, it's work in the Coastal Wetlands Overlay District, 30513.02D, to allow that alteration because we're working in that district. That's one of the special permits. And then the other special permit that we applied for was 30510.12 to add those decks, the decks and the ramp on that coastal structure. I understand that there was an error in the application for hearing and our cover letter, but the actual application request, the Form 2C requested finding of fact does actually have the correct section in there for that second special permit. Again, there's no change in use down here. It's the same use that has always been there. We're just trying to make it a little bit more accessible and a little bit more in compliance with the regulations from the state, particularly marine fisheries. We did also, we got orders of conditions from Conservation, correct? Yeah, we've already been through Conservation Commission on this. You guys are the next stop. After you guys, if you approve it, we go to Chapter 91 with DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers. So this is not, we still got a little ways to go, but this is one of the stops.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to expand what Pat said, so this project, there were permits for it, not perfectly clear back in 2014, 15, when the DPW got FEMA money to do all the rip-rap work and all that stuff. We kind of ran out of money for the dock portion of it, so we did get some state earmark money for the permanent engineering of this project. Town meeting did approve $60,900, I believe, for the new docks that are going on there. So we're looking to create more public access with passive recreation as well. So as Pat mentioned, with the additional deck, it'll kind of separate the gangway and work area of the float, because there is some commercial activity there. That way, passive recreational folks, bird watchers, fishermen will have the lower portion to use, while the dock portion can be used by boats coming in and out or commercial guys, clam shell fishermen, things like that. So it just enhances the area from what it is. So it is a nice area, but if we're gonna permit it, let's permit it, make it something nice for the future. So that's kind of the intent here.
Right. Any questions from the board?
I'm just kind of looking over Andrew's stuff. Do you want to have him go through?
Well, yeah, I was gonna have
Okay.
Andrew speak.
All right. That's my-
I think it's great. Is there going to be any additional parking?
No. Parking, there's 11 parking spaces there, it's tight. A lot of the neighbors do walk down there. Like today, there was a lot of people walking up there as well today. The Daviesport Road itself is a narrow road to begin with. There's no way to really create more parking. Like Pat said, it does serve as one of the key areas for egress for police and fire to get people that are injured on the river year-round. Our boats in the water year-round, so that is an essential location to have a nice, safe dock to get people off the water.
Yeah, we're restricted basically in the revetment that's out there. We obviously can't expand that into the wetlands. That would be a huge permitting endeavor that we would probably never get, so.
Yeah.
It appears to me what you have going on here is pretty much an enhancement of what is already existing, an improvement on it, bringing it more up to code, making it more ADA accessible for people. Yeah, it is beautiful up there.
Andrew, do you wanna give us some of your opinion?
Yeah, just a couple. First, I just want to clarify that whenever a development activity is proposed, the first stop should be the zoning board of appeals and not the conservation commission. It's actually a requirement in Mass General Law. It's a requirement in 310 CMR, and it's a requirement in the Wetlands Protection Act regulations and the Marshfield Wetlands Protection Act regulations that you get all zoning approvals, variances, and special permits prior to filing of a notice of intent. So we should always be the first stop to make sure that the use is allowed before you start going about getting a whole other projects started. But again, I want to stress that This is an allowed use with a special permit in the coastal wetlands district. There is no variance required because this is not on a property. It's in a town-owned right-of-way and coastal tidelands. There's really no reason for a dimensional variance here. It's not attached to a principal structure. None of those things really apply. It's not an accessory structure. It is the principal structure for this area. It's a special structure. That's why we have a special permit in the coastal wetlands district. So it really only needs a special permit under the coastal wetlands district and site plan approval. The variance is moot. The extension and alteration of a non-conforming structure is moot. This is not a non-conforming structure. It is a conforming structure for the coastal wetlands district. So those are my points there.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Bob?
And the only reason I thought it might be prudent to consider the variance was because it looked like it was two different structures in a brand new structure.
Can you turn your mic on? Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
The only reason I thought it was a variance was because it looked like there was a completely different structure that didn't exist before. So, we had alterations of floats and piers and ramps and things like that, but then this other deck structures appeared to be something very different. So,
So all we need is the one special permit?
no, the special permits were required because you're altering a non-conforming structure and you need the coastal wetlands district special permit. But the only way that Andrew and I slightly disagree, and I don't think it's necessarily a significant difference of opinion, is because this other deck structure that they're proposing is not something that existed before, and it's not an alteration.
Bob, can I just comment real quick?
Sure.
I don't think it's a non-conforming structure because the bylaw allows for piers and walks and public boathouses and those types of coastal structures with a special permit in the coastal wetlands district. That's why I don't think it's non-conforming. It is a conforming structure for this coastal wetlands district, and it doesn't require a variance because it's an allowed structure in the coastal wetlands district.
But it still would have to meet setback requirements and things like that. I just want to make sure that they get complete relief so that we don't have to argue about it in the future. So I'd rather see the board err on the side of granting the relief rather than denying it.
So we don't have to give the variance, but we give the two requested special permits?
You think we need the
No,
variance?
he thinks you need the variance.
Because
Well,
we're adding
I-
to it.
If the board is inclined to grant it, I'd prefer that you grant it. And that's not because I necessarily disagree with Andrew, it's because there's at least some view that the deck structure is not what exists today. It's not part of the float and pier structures.
That there is an observation area. I know, I go and sit out there.
Well, it's part of the railroad. It's been there since.
But if there's already an existing deck structure and it's an existence of the deck structure, isn't that an alteration of a pre-existing non-conforming use?
Well, if there was one, but
Or
when I'm looking at
non-conforming
the plan, I don't really see one out there, but it's hard for me to say.
Is there one out
It's
there?
not a non-conforming use. It is a conforming use for this
Andrew,
location.
thank you, Andrew. I apologize. I misspoke. I meant a non-conforming structure.
I don't know if there's a deck, but there's a bench.
It's all asphalted.
Yeah,
It's
there
all
used to,
asphalt.
it used to be a wooden pier.
It's all
But
asphalt.
when they reconstructed it in 2014, because I think it got demolished in one of the storms. When they reconstructed it in 2014, they poured the concrete and put the asphalt out there and got rid of what was a wooden deck.
With that explanation, you can deny the variance as well.
Okay. So no variance but the two special permits. Anything from the audience on this?
Do you want a boathouse while you're there? Because that's allowed.
He gets enough grief.
I'm already well-liked, thank you, though.
Why not?
Thank you for asking, though.
So nothing from the audience? Andrew, you have anything else? So we got anything else from the board? Move to close 2461 Town of Marshfield Harbor Master Damon's Point Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Klum, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
And so I'm gonna move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for 2 special permits, subject to the conditions. Andrew, you got anything to help me with there? Oh, I got them right here. Yeah. Building permit, final as-built, and that's it, that's all he's got.
And compliance with the floodplain bylaw.
Compliance with the floodplain bylaw. Based on the findings that the applicant's proposal to remove the existing pile-held float system and add an 8-foot by 14-foot deck and ramp for access to a pile-held 10-foot by 60-foot relocated float system, and a second 10-foot by 38-foot ramp, and an 8-foot by 12-foot L-shaped deck located on the town-owned Damon's Point revetment site on the North River as described in the cover letter narrative by Patrick Brennan, P.E. dated July 26, 2024, and shown on site plan entitled Damon's Point Site Plan, prepared by PGB Engineering, LLC, dated March 2024, the last revision date of July 18, 2024. Meets the special permit criteria of the section of the 1012 bylaw and section 1302C1 of the bylaw.
Should be D, not C1.
Oh, 1302D1 of the bylaw. Do I have do I have to,
You brought, you brought them in,
what's that?
you do one at a time.
No, he didn't, he put them together.
Okay.
They're okay together.
That's your special permits,
Yeah.
and then you have the site plan approval.
Okay,
Second,
all in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye?
Heidi Klum, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we have to do the variances.
Site plan
Site
approval.
plan. Site plan.
Deny the variances moot.
All right, so,
Second,
all in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye?
Heidi Klum, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
And the site plan approval. I move that the board vote to grant petitioner's application for site plan approval, subject to the conditions based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to remove existing pile-held float system and add an 8-foot by 14-foot deck ramp for access to a pile-held 10-foot by 60-foot relocated float system, and a second 10-foot by 38-foot ramp and an 8-foot by 12-foot L-shaped deck located on the town-owned Damon's Point revetment site on the North River as described in a cover letter narrative by Patrick Brennan, P.E., dated July 26, 2024, and shown on a site plan entitled Damon's Point Site Plan, prepared by PGB Engineering, LLC, dated March 2024, and the last revision on July 18, 2024, meets the performance standards and design criteria of Section 1202 of the bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye?
Heidi Klum, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
All right, so next we're gonna do, what am I doing? 2442, Colin Bono, 12 Carysville.
Colin.
Name and address for the record.
Colin Bono, 12 Careswell Street.
Go ahead.
I'm Attorney Steve Guard for Mr. Bono, the applicant this evening. Good evening, everyone. Before you this evening is an application for a special permit and variance. The variance is typical variance that you folks see to allow access to a public waterway for a lot that fronts on the tidal waters. The plan before you, so that, as you know, your bylaw requires that a variance be issued for the pier and foundation, the pier and pilings supported by, the pier and dock supported by pilings across the rear lot line. This is a little different from the last couple of meetings that we've had. The applicant has moved the walkway to a 10-foot setback from the sideline setback, so we're not requesting any relief for that. The only relief that we're requesting this evening is for the usual variance to cross the rear lot line to access the navigable waterways with the dock. The other permit, of course, is the coastal wetland district special permit for a structure like this. But that's really what it's really pretty straightforward. The walkway is 5 feet wide. It's quite long in the sense because of where the house is located, and it does span the marsh. And it's a typical dock. Unfortunately, Marshfield's bylaw does not exclude rear line setback encroachments for docks and piers to access a navigable waterway, which I suggest might be a good warrant article at some point in the future. So
I agree.
applicants wouldn't have to go through this every time they wanted to put a dock in. So. And I'll turn it over to the board for any questions.
Questions from the board?
Well, when we were last here, there was quite a bit of discussion about the, at low tide, the proximity of your client's dock, Mr. Bono's dock, to the Marshfield Yacht Club. And the Marshfield Yacht Club had done a fairly substantial dredging at cost that we heard at the last meeting. I'm sure you watched it. And their concern, as I'm sure you've heard, was that there was not enough distance between your client's dock and their docks for the youth sailing program to pass and repass. And since that last meeting, what, if anything, have you folks done to address that?
Nothing. The comment is outside the scope of the application that's before the board this evening. It is not relevant. That is a Chapter 91 in Army Corps of Engineers issue that will come up. The jurisdiction of the zoning board ends at the high water mark.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Bob, do you have anything to say about that?
I agree that the Army Corps of Engineers and DEP have jurisdiction over different aspects of the project, but you've been asked to grant a special permit. And one of the criteria in the special permit is its impact on abutting properties and uses. And you have to make a finding that it will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood in connection with your special permit findings, so you need to evaluate that.
And then the harbor master gave a list of things that, to submit or do, he's still there. I didn't see anything else come in other than the screenshot with less than 5 feet. Is there anything you've submitted
None.
based on what?
No, not that I know of. We were under the impression that that would be dealt with at the Chapter 91 DEP licensing hearing.
So I think we made it clear that we were looking for the recommendations to put a new plan put into place from Mr. Bono to submit some stuff from what the harbor master had. I was expecting to see something else other than the 5 feet taken out, which was what he was asked to do, but, Mike, do you wanna comment on anything?
What's that?
Mike, do you wanna comment on what you had asked and what normally goes?
We can't hear anything that you guys are saying. I don't know if
Oh, sorry.
The mic up, you can go to the podium if you want.
Yeah, I can, before Mike gets up there, we can agree to do all of the things that the harbor master is asked to do. All the comments will be incorporated into the final plan.
I'm
That
kind of
work?
curious as to why the Green Harbor, their yacht club, why their floats go all the way down in front of the river frontage on this property. Kind of like park.
It's a really good question, Larry. I actually brought this up to DEP already, and I do not have a response. They definitely went in front of multiple parties' properties to get that license. The research that I did do is that dock is properly licensed under Chapter 91. I did not find anything under the Army Corps of Engineers, other than the fact that they had boat fingers on the, I guess you'd call it the west side of the docks, which were not supposed to be there. But I can't explain that yet, but I am asking the DEP to tell us why they were able to encroach upon the, the navigable water in front of our lot as well as the neighbor's lot.
So,
But the way this is set up right now, there's enough room to get, especially with the fingers removed from the backside of the yacht club's dock, that where they weren't supposed to be there, there'll be sufficient access for the sailing program as well as the
Right.
boats from the applicant's dock.
right, so that is your opinion that that's the case?
Yeah.
The
And it-
fingers were corrected long before, so we
Right.
don't really need to keep bringing them up. They've already been corrected, and what's in there right now is permitted and where it's supposed to be. It's been
Right.
done the way it's supposed to be done. What about the setback from the neighbor's property? Isn't it really close to is it the Sweeney's property that's next door?
Right, we moved it to the
We're moving the
10-foot
variance,
setback,
we're
so
not
we
asking
comply.
to the
Okay.
10
It
feet.
complies now.
It's required.
We took that advice and we moved the pier over so that it.
And Bob, can't we just approve what is in our jurisdiction and leave the rest up to whoever's in charge of that stuff?
Well, you have to make findings that first of all, the use is allowed, which I think you can make that finding. Then you have to make the finding that the use is essential but desirable to the public convenience or welfare. You have to make a finding that the use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. I don't think we're talking about pedestrian safety here. The requested use will not overload any public system much. I don't think it's really applicable. Any special regulations set forth in Article 11 are fulfilled. That's not really applicable. And then the last one is the requested use will not impair the integrity, character of the district or adjoining zones, nor be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare. Those are the questions you have to ask. And you can make those findings in the affirmative or negative, and then you have the ability to impose conditions, including conditions that are reasonably appropriate to protect or safeguard the neighborhood or otherwise serve the purposes of the bylaw. That's right from your
Right
charge.
up there, what Andrew has it up there.
So if our bylaws allow one float and there's extra floats, is that a thing?
I'm sorry?
Isn't there was 3 floats that he was originally proposing?
Well, my understanding is
Bone,
the
I'm
floats
sorry,
are
no.
configured the way they are because they're trying to get to enough water
Right,
where there's water at the low tide. And that's why, because there are aspects of the floats that apparently don't have enough water or are on the ground at the low tide. So I don't know whether that's even approvable from the state, but, that is an issue that's solely up to somebody else.
okay.
Question is this also gonna have an adverse impact on somebody else's property? And I only know it from my personal experience. I'm not a member of the yacht club, but, I took sailing lessons there. Those docks have been there for 50 years. I'm sure they've probably been slightly reconfigured, but there was always a dock that went way down, probably in front of where this property is. So,
Andrew, do you have anything to add? Anyone else on the board?
No, I mean, the same comments I made the first time. I mean, they're literally just looking for the variance to get out. It's the regular special permit that we do for all docks. Once they're past the property line, if they have to reconfigure anything out here, that's conservation, DEP, Army Corps of Engineers, Division of Marine Fisheries. There's a lot of oversight that goes into those decisions. This is just one small part of the municipal zoning approval. Literally the same thing you guys just approved with the harbor master doing that dock and pier. It's the same municipal zoning approval.
Okay, thank you.
Actually,
Anything?
I disagree with that.
We'll go ahead.
I don't agree with that. It's not the same because the one that they just did at Damon's Point, it's not interfering with anything out there. There's nothing else out there. This, I believe, will interfere. So I just haven't seen that corrected at all, which is a little bit of a concern for me. So I don't agree that they're the same thing, but I respect your opinion on that.
It appears to me that this is pretty straightforward, what we've been approving. The type of dock and the way the dock is laid out in the river is gonna be a decision for someone else to make. If they're able to do it safely and accommodate the next door neighbors, and they will be doing so. If they're not, then they would deny at that point. But what we have in front of us is what we approve on
Yeah,
a
but
routine basis.
we also have the right to say if it's going to impede a neighbor, and it will. So that is part of what we do. We don't have to bump that across to somebody else's permission plate. That is something that we do.
I understand that, I just
My
don't
my
feel
counterpoint to
it's
that is those existing docks impede a bunch of neighbors, and why can't we do something about that?
That's not our job.
Yeah, that's out of our jurisdiction.
Nothing to do with
So,
us.
Heidi, in my mind, the question is, will it be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood? A neighbor does not a neighborhood make.
Well, in that area down there, it's very cozy, and it is different, and there's a reason why
No
there's
doubt.
not been a dock there for that many years.
No one's applied.
That's, people have actually inquired about it, and I think Mike DeMeo can attest to that.
This is the first application that's come in front of this board.
I'm
ever
just telling you, I
to
don't
put a
think,
dock.
I think that it's not the right dock for that space. It would be nice if the yacht club and Mr. Bono could work together, so he could have a slip. That would be very nice. It's, you know, it could happen, but it would be nice.
That would be perfect, that doesn't appear to be happening.
So now we can hear from the audience. Anyone? Up to the mic. Name and address for the
Mary Beth Corbett, 38 Elmhurst Avenue, and I'm here on behalf of the Green Harbor Yacht Club. For all the reasons that we expressed at the original meeting and the site visit about the special permit requirement of interfering with our legally permitted, which did come before this board, how those docks were built. We got all of the necessary permits at every level, including this board. So if there's any suggestion that we did anything wrong in extending those docks to where they are, that should be dispelled because we can cite your approval of those docks. We continue to assert that if you approve this application, the application as filed is not simply for the dock to end where your jurisdiction ends. It is laid out with 6 docks, really, at the end, 6 floats, 3 of them, 1 on each side, for 6 boats. And so I have sat through many hearings where the question is, how are we going to know if you've built it the way we approved it? If you are approving this, you're approving what has been asked for, and not just simply out to the end of the property.
So we can condition it to say that it has to meet, like, I know you can't have what's called a mud slip with conservation, so you can't have a slip that sits in the mud. They
Right.
changed that rule a year or 2 ago. So he can't have anything that's sitting in the mud. So from what it looks like to me on the site visit, that looks like will possibly be sitting in the mud. So that will have to meet all those regulations on top of the Army Corps' regulations, the DEP regulations.
Right.
So all we're doing is what we're going to say is he has to meet all those standards.
Right.
Our job is just to get him to one of a very few amount of cities and towns that makes a person come in front of you for a dock. All the, whatever, 170, however many cities and towns are on the coastline do not do it because through common sense, they understand you have to cross your rear lot line to get there. This is really just a formality. The rest of that gets picked up by the authorities that have much more knowledge than we do on how that thing should be built. And we make sure that you meet their standards along with our conservation that's why he's here first. Then he goes to conservation and they tell him what he's allowed to build, not us.
I respectfully disagree in the sense, I understand the limits of your jurisdiction, but you've got an application that lays out specifically the length and width and the number of docks that are part of this application. And I hope you condition
We're gonna
things if
condition-
you're
well, we can
leaning
condition
that
a little
forward,
bit.
that way.
Is
yeah,
your
we-
concern that he's not going to do what he says he's going to do?
No, my concern is he is going to do what he says he's going to do. The least concern we had was with what he's changed, from 5 to 10, in asking for the variance. Our concern is out in that he's blocking, he will be significantly impeding the access to our previously permitted development. And that's our concern.
I understand what you're saying. Based on what you've said, your concerns would best be addressed at the DEP/Army Corps of Engineering's level, because they have jurisdiction over the waterways, which we do not.
I understand that. It's just interesting to me that you allow an application that hasn't staked out what the actual project is. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, he's required to put stakes to show where he's going to be. We don't have any of that. Now, I understand what you're saying, that is something that is hopefully at some point going to be picked up in this process. This is,
I am confident.
we've had multiple hearings on this, and he still is yet to stake out what he's going to do.
What if we just don't approve anything beyond the layout of any of docks or piers beyond the
So
property line?
Bob's saying we can condition
So
it.
can I make a quick comment regarding that, Heidi?
Yeah,
I
yes, sorry.
I would say, so technically, the only thing that the ZBA really has jurisdiction over is permanent structures. So you're starting with an accessory structure on upland, which is why we have a permit or a variance for this at all, or any jurisdiction, is because it starts on upland and it's a accessory structure. It continues all the way past the property line. The property line is right here. And then that permanent structure ends with the pier platform. Everything after that proposed is a temporary structure removed at the end of the season and is not within the jurisdiction of the ZBA. You only have jurisdiction over the permanent structures,
Thank you, Andrew.
which is why there are so many different approvals.
Right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
And they will have to absolutely stake out everything for the Conservation Commission, for the Harbor Master, for me, for the DMF, and the Army Corps. That absolutely will happen, but he's just trying to get through the zoning process.
I mean, we also regulate uses, Andrew.
Correct, and this is a permitted use in the coastal wetlands district with a special permit. It's a permitted use.
Anything else? Anybody?
I have a question.
Hold on, we have someone coming up. Go ahead.
I'm Harry Klebanoff. of
Andrew, can you
52 South.
mute Harry Klebanoff while this guy speaks?
Thanks a lot. Thank you. My name is Donald Nagel. I'm a local environmental land use attorney, and I represent Lori and Frederick Sweeney, who are residents of Marginal Street and own an abutting parcel to the parcel at issue. And if we could just put up the plan for a moment, I'd appreciate it, so I can give a sense of where their lot is. I don't know who's controlling the,
Andrew is.
but could we put up the proposed plan? So the Sweeneys own the lot just, between the proposed dock and really where that, if you zoom in, the property lines could probably be shown. But they own land directly abutting the proposed dock. And you can see it there. And they do have coastal access, just as the applicant does. So they do have concerns about this project as proposed, and on their behalf, I urge this board to deny the special permit and to deny the variance. Just a couple of preliminary comments on what was said so far. a typical dock for this location, it's 294 feet long, plus 180 feet of floats. Those floats are shown on the plan. They're part of the scope of the approval. And I adamantly disagree with any opinion that says that the floats are outside the jurisdiction of this board. It absolutely is, and I can explain why. As is obvious from this plan, you can see the encroachment upon the floats and docks currently in existence and approved that are owned by the Green Harbor Yacht Club. And the special permit is required. The standards of the special permit is that the approval cannot endanger the health and safety of the occupants of the neighborhood, including the Green Harbor Yacht Club. And furthermore, if we can put the plan back up on the screen again, please. It totally prevents any potential access that the Sweeney's have or could have to the waterfront. Completely eliminates that. So I know this board has its requirements, and with regard to that, the first point I want to make is that the proposed dock is grossly oversized for an accessory use to a private single-family residence. For a single-family residence on a non-conforming structure, an accessory use to a non-conforming single-family residence, in my opinion, I'm not an expert on docks, but in my opinion, that is way more than is needed or necessary or convenient for a single-family residence. Its size suggests that it's more of a commercial use than it is for residential. So I think in that context, the applicant should fully disclose its plans for development of this property beyond this dock, because the size and scope of the dock is way beyond what would be typically needed for a single-family use. Second, the pier as proposed does not meet the applicable setback requirements for a side yard. Apparently, this plan, which I haven't had a chance to review, was just submitted yesterday. Apparently, the dock was moved 5 feet further away from the Sweeney's property line, but the applicable setback requirement is 15 feet. So it doesn't meet that. And the reason for that is that the applicable dimensional requirements in this district use the dimensional requirements of the adjoining residential district, which is an R3. Under R3, the side lot setback is 15 feet. So it doesn't meet that. And if it did, I suppose I wouldn't be applying for a variance.
They would be applying for a variance because they can't build it without one.
Let me go on. The proposed dock, the variance from the setback should not be granted because it would be substantially detrimental to the public good in the surrounding neighborhood. As I mentioned, the Sweeney's would be completely blocked from access to the waterfront.
So the variance, you're no longer requesting a variance?
Yeah, the 10 feet's for
10
accessory
feet is
structure.
accessory structure.
Learned counsel is referring to primary structures at 15 feet.
So the applicant has withdrawn its request for a variance?
No, the variance for the sideline setback is no
been
longer
withdrawn.
required, because they're meeting the accessory structure of 10,
The setback is 15 feet.
10 feet.
It's 15 under the
10 feet.
R3.
It's 10 feet for an accessory structure.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
What?
Under the bylaw,
It's 10 feet under the, you're wrong.
okay, we can disagree.
We do disagree, because I'm right.
Okay. Okay, Chairman. Thank you for that.
We can ask our counsel, Bob, what is the setback for
10
an,
feet for an accessory structure.
Andrew, as the building commissioner, what is the setback for an accessory structure?
It's 10 feet, I've got it highlighted on the board right here.
Thank you.
From the bylaw.
It's right there if you'd like to read the bylaw.
I bear correction,
Okay, thank you.
okay?
Well, good then.
The 180 feet of the floats appear to encroach upon the setback established for navigation channels and anchorage for the Green Harbor Yacht Club, and a potential water act for the Sweeneys, as I indicated. And for those two reasons, I urge this board not to approve those floats in the current location. The special permit should not be issued because the scale and scope of the project within the coastal wetlands district endangers the health, safety, and occupants of the neighborhood, including those members of the Green Harbor Yacht Club. I think it's a real problem to consider the fact that those floats are not part of your jurisdiction. This is the zoning board. You have a plan in front of you. Are you going to approve the plan without the floats? Is that really what's happening here? If not, the plan should reflect actually what's being approved. Or I urge a special condition saying that the scope of the approval doesn't include the floats, and that the floats would be approved under other jurisdictions, as you suggested earlier. Finally, the existing structure, I think this was alluded to earlier, the existing structure is non-conforming pre-existing. And so this is an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming structure, which is a great expansion of it, and it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing non-conforming structure, for the reasons I just outlined. It's blocking the Sweeney's access to the water, and it's interfering and endangering the use of the Green Harbor Yacht Club and its members. Thank you.
Thank you. You have anything to?
I think we resolved the 10-foot issue pretty clearly. The structure itself, to suggest that the application doesn't accurately represent what the applicant intends to do with the property is misplaced and quite frankly ludicrous.
Could you speak up?
Oh, yeah, sure. Is misplaced and quite frankly ludicrous. I want to point out that the Green Harbor Yacht Club is subject to, as a commercial entity, subject to an area of reconfiguration for their Chapter 91 license. The proposed floats that you see, while not under the jurisdiction of the board, in my opinion, and will be dealt with later on by other entities, are proposed to be outside that area of configuration. So they don't have any right to object to that. There's 37.4 feet between the end of the proposed floats and the yacht club's floats. That's a pretty wide swath for little sailboats to get in and out of there and small recreational vessels. There's 31.4 feet or so from the end of the adjacent dock. Forgive me, I don't remember this person's name. What was it? The dock that's shown to the south at the opening as well. So also navigable, and that doesn't encroach on the reconfiguration area. So in Chapter 91, structures are allowed to be right up to the reconfiguration line, and boats are allowed to be moored to those structures. So the proposed floats, while I'm just saying this to placate your concerns, down the road, they don't impede on that, and there's ample amount of room between them to navigate safely in and out. Again, those are issues that will be vetted fully by Chapter 91 DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers as well. So I think that the board understands that their jurisdiction is for the fixed structure to the end of the platform, which is roughly where the mean high water is, and the rest of those floats, the rest of the structures are temporary in nature, and they're outside of the jurisdiction and will be removed on an annual basis for the winter time. So I'm just reaffirming what Andrew has very eloquently pointed out to the board.
Thank you.
Have they thought about maybe sharing a dock with the Sweeneys and everybody work and play nice in that little tiny sandbox over there? Just saying.
The Sweeneys are already blocked in by the Green Harbor Yacht Club. They're in the same predicament as this applicant.
Not if we built to where.
We're not.
Heidi, I can address that real quick. So this property here is landlocked, it's not attached to the Sweeney's actually property over here, so it doesn't have a principal structure on it, so you can't put an accessory structure on a lot without a principal structure. That's why this is an accessory structure to the principal structure. But you
There was an
can't, the
existing
zoning
structure.
bylaws prohibit an accessory structure without a principal structure.
If you'd like to speak, come up to the microphone. Name and address for the record.
Lori Sweeney, 119 Marginal Street. Hello, Andrew. I just want you to know that there was an existing structure there, and the pilings are still located there. It was actually the original boathouse of Daniel Webster.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Sweeney or Ms. Sweeney, you're saying that there was a structure on the
On our property,
Lot
on the
adja-
lot,
lot
boathouse.
that's adjacent to the applicant's lot?
Correct.
And when was that removed or destroyed?
That was destroyed by Tom Flanders in the probably early 70s maybe, because it was falling down.
Andrew, could that be rebuilt?
No, it could not.
Well, the Historical Society believes that it could be rebuilt.
They're not the building commissioner, though.
No, they are not. They are not. And I'm going to hold my tongue on the building commissioner, but I'm not comfortable with the situation.
Thank you.
I don't know. The dock, so I'm confused. If they can't do it, the Sweeney's couldn't do anything, then how's the situation like on Ferry Street where it's across the street? There's a lot of places where there's docks across the street. I'm just kind of wondering how that,
You guys granted them a variance from that requirement for each of those things. You
So it
have to
does
grant
happen.
them a variance to have an accessory structure on a lot without a principal structure.
so it can
Again,
happen.
so it's not allowed by our bylaws, and that's why variances are granted.
Thank you, Andrew.
Bob, do you have anything to add?
No, the situation with the docks across the street is something that we routinely allow.
Okay. And anything else from the audience?
Brian, Harry Klebanoff has been trying to talk for a while online.
All right, let him on.
Thank you. Harry Klebanoff, as was just said, 52 Assumption Road. My concern is a different kind of detriment to the community in an extensive project like this. We've had consultants that have talked to the town of Marshfield, from Woods Hole, Leslie Fields, the senior geologist, when they were doing the beach nourishment program. One of the things that she said and wrote was that the coastal salt marshes are our best line of defense against sea level rise, coastal flooding, and flooding from rainfall. So my concern, and I don't know if it's the purview of this commission or if it goes over to the Conservation Commission, is who is making sure that the impact of something this extensive is not going to create a different kind of detriment to the neighborhood in terms of the increased potential for sea level rise, flooding, rainfall flooding that could destroy the neighborhood.
I think I met you at the site visit, and that would be a question for the Conservation Commission.
My concern is not knowing which commission. I wanted to make sure that somehow that gets addressed, because my concern is, what Leslie Fields also said, is that areas that have flooded have a 100% chance of reflooding, and that would be Brant Rock and Green Harbor. So I just want to make sure that we're not constructing something that's going to ruin the neighborhood rather than enhance it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, I can address Harry's concerns if you want.
Sure.
Harry, I will say that that as far as any environmental impact, especially as it pertains to sea level rise, is absolutely going to be identified and addressed by hopefully the Conservation Commission, but absolutely by the Office of Coastal Zone Management, the Division of Marine Fisheries, and the Army Corps of Engineers through the DEP Chapter 91 process. Those they are very focused on addressing sea level rise and flood impacts as far as those, and they are more qualified as professionals to address that aspect.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that.
Anything else? Sure.
Laurie Sweeney, 119 Marginal Street. I just wanted to confirm, does Andrew, who's on speakerphone, do you work for the town of Marshfield, or are
He's
you
the
a
building
consultant?
No, he's the building commissioner. He works for the town of Marshfield.
Okay. How typical is it for involvement with the commissioner with an applicant?
Very typical, because every applicant generally goes through him.
Okay, has that changed recently?
Not,
Because I've spoken to a lot of people that put docks in, and the first step was the harbor master, conservation, and then ZBA.
so any project that comes before us, in because Marshfield, for
Like, how much time would you say is appropriate for the building commissioner? Because I know conservation gives a lot of time as well.
how much time would?
Yeah, to an applicant.
I know he spends hours in there with some applicants.
Okay,
He's very accessible.
okay,
If
yeah.
Are you looking to meet with him? He's very.
No, I'm not looking to meet with him. I actually did a couple of FOIA requests, and I was going through some information, so I was just asking, like, what's acceptable, what isn't, from a town perspective. That's all,
All right,
that's all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing that there
Brian,
is.
real quick, I'm just gonna give a quick plug to the building department. I'm happy to meet with any applicant, proposing any project of any type of development activity anywhere in the town of Marshfield, especially a flood zone. I feel that they should get zoning approval for the use prior to going to any other board. And it's actually required by Mass General Law that they do go and get zoning approval. And since I'm the zoning enforcement officer and the building commissioner, and responsible for those determinations, I would encourage any applicant to come and meet with me as often and as many times as possible to make sure that they are doing everything correctly and according to the regulations.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, so I'm gonna move that we close.
And
Oh,
you're doing online comment or no?
who's this?
Walter Graney, 3 Proprietors Drive. I'm a member at the GHYC.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to point out here that the plan that is on the screen right here is not an accurate representation of the approved plan December 2010 for Green Harbor Yacht Club. Missing in between floating dock 1 and 2 are all the approved fingerlings for other boats. So that is missing from this plan. And then to the comment of navigable waterways there, on the end of the GHYC dock there, at the very end of floating dock 3, that is not a passable area if that dock goes in, depending on the beam of said boat.
Thank you.
I didn't understand that last part.
I didn't
The
either.
beam
The beam is the width of the
No,
boat.
I get that, but aren't these photographs, not plans?
Yeah,
Yeah, drone
Yeah. it's a
photographs.
photograph.
So it's actual
how are we-
measurement of a photograph showing the width between the existing T dock and the end of the Green Harbor Yacht Club dock.
Correct. That's not an accurate representation of the usage.
The photograph is not an accurate representation.
Correct. This is a satellite image. This is not the approved plan that GHYC has of the approved plan December 2010.
You have that?
No,
I mean, you're
Okay.
referencing that on your plan, so do you have the actual plan?
No.
I do not have it in front of me. Someone else does.
Looks like
Their
Andrew's
plan's a hand drawn.
Andrew, do you have it?
Yeah.
looking for it right now.
Yes, I have access to all these plans, and if you give me a moment, I can bring up whatever plan you need to from the Green Harbor Yacht Club as far as what they have been approved for dredging or any kind of docks here.
No, it's the drone.
It's an aerial photo.
I shot it with the
Oh, he shot
drone.
it with the drone. No? No. My client just told me that he shot these pictures with a drone.
So a drone is not an accurate representation of an approved plan.
They're
I guess-
accurate
I
to
guess
within
the photo-
one
the camera
100th of
must
an
have been
inch.
off. I can't.
No. You're missing all of the fingerlings between your floating dock 1 and 2 from the Green Harbor side.
This is
Green Harbor Yacht
what,
Club
this is
side.
what existed at the time of the drone picture.
It's-
I could take a drone picture too and draw a bunch of cartoons.
Yeah, again, once again, to suggest that we've misrepresented anything is misplaced.
You can,
Pissed.
make it up top.
I'm getting pissed.
Probably just
Yep.
looking.
Go ahead.
Brian Stack, 44 Marginal Street, Green Harbor. I just want to point out that in our reconfiguration zone,
Who's our?
sorry,
Who's our?
the Green Harbor Yacht Club.
Sorry, thank you.
Sorry about that. I'm the dock master at the yacht club.
Gotcha.
So in our reconfiguration zone, Andrew, will you pull that drawing back up, please? That is an accurate representation, except for those 3 fingers on the main pier going out. They're not shown there. And I'm thinking the reason why they're not shown there is because this isn't staked out, so it doesn't show any detriment or impediment there. And if it was staked out and our fingers were on that drawing, I think you quickly see there's no way that they could be next to our reconfiguration zone. Furthermore, those fingers that aren't shown on that drawing, because of Chapter 91 and our reconfiguration zone, I can put those anywhere I want. And as someone pointed out, they were removed. But guess what? I can put them back there if I feel like it, because that's what a reconfiguration zone is, and that's what we were granted. So, lastly, this isn't access to a navigable waterway. This is access to our reconfig zone. And what that does is creates way far of an impact on the traffic of boats, especially of the magnitude of what we're looking at here. It's almost as much as we have. So you have 120 feet of docks there. I'd still like to know the intention, the final intention of this. Because there's rumors that there's condos going up and these are going to be docks for condos. How many boats are you going to put in there on a 120-foot dock? That all has to be explained. It has to be staked out before we can decide if it's impeding on the safety and well-being of the members of the yacht club and the people in the street.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
Is it for one boat?
It's,
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
It depends on what they'll approve us for, to be honest with you, and what kind of water's there. I will point out that a reconfiguration zone is for structures and floats. It doesn't mean that that's a private area that the general public cannot access with their own vessels. It doesn't close off that navigable water to anyone and everybody. So people are allowed to transit reconfiguration zones. They have the right to transit reconfiguration zones. It is simply for an area that the applicant with the licensee can place docks and floats and piers, pilings. But in order to do reconfigurations, you have to get approval, even to replace, even to move floats. And those floats are subject to a surface area restriction as well in the reconfiguration zone. So there are other things. You can't just willy-nilly move floats around and put them wherever you want. You have to get approval from DEP to do that.
Every single time you want to move something?
Yeah, yes. You have to at least notify them if you are within the area, surface area requirements, your limitation, surface area limitation, you still have to notify them.
So in order for, if they have a reconfiguration zone that they're allowed to move in, they have to go, even though they have that, you're saying that they have to go back to DEP and get that permission?
Yep, I just did one in Boston.
top of that.
I just did one in Quincy Marina Bay. We did a reconfiguration of the West Basin, and I had to submit a plan to DEP Boston, and they approved it. It was the same floats, we were just changing the location and how they were gonna set up.
So,
My point was not really to that.
No, I was just
That's for
wondering.
DEP.
No, I was
But
just wondering.
I wanted to point out to you folks that, again, that area is not like a private exclusive easement. It is a reconfiguration zone for floats and structures, and does not stop the general public from accessing the public waterways.
right, we get that. So I have another question. So what about when there's boats all docked in, when you come down the original ramp there, before you get to the fingerlings or whatever the heck they're called? All the boats that get docked in there, say there's 7, 8 boats that get docked in there, and this dock's coming out pretty far, pretty cozy. And I know that the sailboats come in, they get trailed into the end of the corner there, and they come back out. So how do you think that they're gonna get out?
I suspect that the DEP will probably put some sort of restriction on the very end if it deems that the area is not wide enough to let boats pass. But it's not uncommon to have only one lane for a boat to go in and out. A boat will wait for a boat to leave and then wait to go in. So it doesn't take a lot of space. I mean, boats very large boats are 16 feet wide. This is 37 odd feet wide. So a sailboat that you talked about, those little sailboats that kids train in are 5, 6 feet wide. So I think that it's a matter of navigation and waiting to, go back and forth. We do this the same, I do this work for the Situate Harbor Yacht Club as well, and we abut the boat club. And there's, a big boat on the end, and they have their docks, and boats have to wait to go by. But nobody encroaches on their reconfiguration. It's not uncommon. People make it work.
Is that the plan there, Andrew? Oh, honestly, I'm ready to close. Is anything else anyone has to add to this?
I can't find the
All right, that's
reconfiguration
fine.
of the floats in the Concom server.
So I'm gonna make a motion to close 2442 Colin Bono, 12 Caswell Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensel, aye?
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi, call me aye.
Mike,
Jean Lee, aye.
sorry, Mac Brothers, aye.
All right, so. Do I start with the variance, Bob?
Yep.
So I'm gonna make, I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a variance, subject to the conditions based on a finding that the applicant's proposal code to construct a 6-foot by 30-foot ramp, a 17.5-foot, well, so this is where we would we, if we don't want to approve the stuff out beyond what we're responsible for,
You could deny the variance.
we can't condition it that we're
Well, you
just,
could also say you're
Leave it out of
allowing
this
him to
language.
cross the boundary line, but you're not allowing him to configure any floats.
all right. So I would put that in the conditions.
If that's a potential condition.
No.
I would be
But if we,
opposed to
if we,
that.
yeah, but if we condition that, then.
Yeah, but-
then what's the point of moving past this?
Yeah, I
It would be-
would,
it would
You
be-
can't cross the rear property line without a variance.
No, I'm saying if we say he can't put floats in, does that restrict?
No, we're not
him?
saying he
You're not
can't
saying
put
that.
float.
Okay.
You're not approving that configuration.
It's just like when we don't approve a
I
shed.
understand.
It's just not approved.
Yeah. So we're just saying that we're not condoning the docks, or we're not,
Well, you're not condoning the configuration that
of the
they've
docks.
proposed.
Okay, so we can put that in the condition.
Variance gets you across.
Yeah, but he's gonna have to get that straightened out. All right, so which of the docks would I leave out? I think it's the 3 60-foot by 6-footers.
I don't think, nothing beyond the property line.
I think,
You could probably approve right up to the elbow.
What?
You'd probably approve right up to the elbow. if
Elbow,
that's
yeah,
the way
that's
you're
what I think. So it's 246 feet by 5'7", and then the platform. And then
the
I would,
16 by 12 path.
yeah, and then I would leave out the 36-foot gangway and the 60-foot by 6, 3 floats.
Why would you leave out the gangway?
I guess I can tell her. He said to end it at that,
Temporary structures.
I would include everything,
but the
I mean, I
3,
would include everything. But if you folks are anti-floats, then just leave out the
3
dimension of the
60-foot
floats.
by 6-foot floats. Is that what, I'm asking you guys.
Do
what
we
do
have to, I really see no difference in this
Yeah, I
being
mean-
any other.
All right,
Exactly. I'm
leave it in.
inclined- Yeah.
All right, I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a variance subject to the conditions based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to construct a 6-foot by 30-foot ramp, a 17.5 by 14-foot deck, a 9-foot 8 by 5'7" ramp, a 246 by 5'7" pier, with a 16-foot by 12-foot platform, a 36 by 4-foot gangway, and 3 60-foot by 6-foot floats on the property located at 12 Caswell Street, as shown on the plan proposed. Well, I have to add conditions.
Brian, I think you should identify who are your voting members for this,
Oh,
because you typically allow everybody to vote, but you need to know who the 5 members of your board that are voting are.
Larry, you voting?
Yes.
Grover?
Yep.
Ryan? And I'll vote. So that's,
Can you just repeat that?
it's just the 5
Five
regular members.
Thank you.
In as much as.
So now we have to do the conditions.
Well, you haven't taken a vote? Or you want to discuss conditions before you take your vote?
Well, the conditions go into the
Vote.
decision.
I move to grant
All right, we
the
can.
variance as read by Brian.
All right, well, I gotta finish. Located at 12 Caswell Street, shown on a plan identified on proposed pier in Marshfield dated May 8th, 2024, by Duxbury Construction LLC, stamped by Sheldon R. Finney, PLS, Freeman Boynton III. PE meets the variance criteria in section 1011 of the bylaw. I don't have to go through 1011. Andrew, can you put up 1011?
Move to find the conditions, circumstances are unique to the applicant's lot, structure, or building, and do not apply to neighboring land structures or buildings in the same district. Strict application of the provisions of the bylaw would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the lot, structure, or building in a manner equivalent to the use permitted to be made by other owners of their neighboring land structures or buildings in the same district. 3, the unique condition and circumstances are not the result of actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of the bylaw, and relief, if approved, will not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes and intent of this bylaw, and relief, if approved, will not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the district.
Everyone agree with that?
No,
I do.
I do. How do you know?
no, I don't.
4 to 1.
I do.
Well, they can still speak.
Hold on, Brad.
Brian, can you just take a vote on that, whether people agree or not?
So, do we agree with Brian reading the findings?
I do. I do.
I do.
Brian Murphy, yes.
No.
Heidi Conway, no. Jean, you can go ahead, in case we need it in the future. Yes, do you agree or no?
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. So now, second, right? Since you said.
I made the motion, so
So
you
I
can
second
second it. All in
Larry Keane,
favor?
aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, no.
Jean? You still can.
Oh, okay, Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Now we have to do the special permits. You can keep rolling since you're on a roll over there.
I move the board votes to grant the petitioner's application for 2 special permits subject to conditions based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to construct, do I have to read all this silliness? 6 by 30 foot ramp, a 17 and a half by 14 foot deck, a 9.8 foot by 5.7 foot ramp, a 246 foot by 5.7 foot pier with a 16 by 12 platform, a 36 by 4 foot gangway, and 3 60 by 6 foot floats on the property located at 12 Careswell Street as shown on a plan entitled Proposed Pier in Marshfield dated May 8th by Duxbury Construction LLC, stamped by Sheldon R. Finney, PLS, and Freeman Boynton III, PE, meets the special permit criteria of sections 13.02C.1 and 1010 of the Marshfield bylaw.
Second? All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
No, not as proposed. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Is Heidi no?
Is that everybody? Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Did you impose any conditions? I couldn't follow.
You did. They'll be imposed by some other
You
board.
want me to leave the FOIA here for everybody to review?
What's that?
The meeting is
FOIA's
closed.
request?
The meeting is closed. Thank you.
Anything you want to leave, you can leave with
Yep,
Nancy.
Nancy,
No, it's okay.
over there.
Just asking. Thought Andrew might want them.
What's up next?
Well, now we're back to the beginning. So some poor person. Cut River Meadow, 2462. Are they here?
Yes.
Cut River Meadow Irrevocable Trust, Patrick Ring, trustee. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 28-foot by 35-foot two-story addition on the northerly side of the existing single-family dwelling on the property located at 19 Pearl Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel M041705A, is located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead.
Good evening. So as you said, we're looking for a 28 by 35 foot two-floor extension to the structure coming north on the eastern side of the property line. We are within, right now, the distance from structure to property line is 4.8 feet. The plan is to build the addition and then also raise the structure about 6.5 feet from where it currently sits right now. The current distance is 4.8 feet. Per the building commissioner's request, we were looking to put it back to the full 5 feet. The reason we wouldn't go back any further is because we are hitting the conservation line. We do have approval from the Conservation Commission, but we are right at that 25-foot buffer from the conservation line there. The structure itself predates 1900. That's as far back at the records that we have predating the zoning board rules. We are looking to bring the house back to a 5-bedroom home. In 2017, it was renovated to be a 4-bedroom home. We're looking to return it to that existing 5-bedroom. As far as connection to public water, drainage, and sewer systems, the home is already, as it is connected to town water and sewer. The occupancy of the home will not change with the addition being put in right now. It's simply to give space to the occupants that are in there at the time. No current special regulations are in place. We don't anticipate any change to traffic congestion or pedestrian safety, as this isn't encroaching on any roadway space. And as far as, question 6 on the application is pretty consistent with the current character of the district and the adjoining zones. Turn over to the board if there's any questions.
Any questions from the board?
No, I'm good.
So this is not a two-family, you're saying? This is
Correct.
one kitchen and?
Correct.
It's not a two-family?
Yes.
And is your the air conditioning condenser, whatever that is on the side, is that gonna be moved over?
We haven't hashed that out with HVAC yet, but it will probably, there's an existing one on the southern side of the existing structure in the second floor. So there would have to be, I'm sure there would probably have to be some additional units put in, but I don't know for a fact that answer. That's not what, yeah, we haven't looked into that yet.
And so Andrew, you're saying it's not in the coastal wetlands district?
No, it is not in the coastal wetlands district. Really, the coastal wetlands district is marshland. And this is on upland. That's all. It's just in a flood zone.
Anything to add from the board? Audience? Seeing that there's none?
No, there is.
Oh. Name and address for the record.
Steve Fabrizio, 101 Avon Street. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to meet with us tonight and provide feedback and voice our concerns. I'd like to start by saying our home will be the most impacted by the proposed addition and subsequent house raising. The Ring's current home is 4 foot 8 inches off of our lot line, and I've come to understand that the new proposed 1,960 square foot 2-story addition attaching to the current house, which according to the town's assessor database is 2,952 square feet, will bring the total to almost 5,000 square feet. After the house is jacked up and moved out of the way to another portion of their 30,000 square foot lot for the very detrimental excavation of the old foundation and then the objectionable pile driving, the home will return to its pre-existing non-conforming location, raised up 6 feet on pilings, and the new proposed setback of 5 feet will provide us an additional 4 inches of breathing room, or the width of a 2x4. I know their home is 4 foot 8 inches from our lot line, as we had our property surveyed in 2020 in preparation for speaking with the town inspectors and any necessary departments to discuss the ultimately permit and install privacy fence. Local survey company Stenbeck and Taylor provided the instrument survey and asked for wooden stakes to be provided to be driven along the lot line and on the corners, which they were installed that survey day, only to come back a few days later to find out that someone removed our stakes. No one from our family did. We're still looking for the person that removed them. If anybody has any information, we would greatly appreciate it. Shortly after the survey stake incident, my mother came home from the store to find the irrigation company had placed marker flag layouts where a new irrigation system was to be installed onto our property without consent or permission, or even a neighborly pre-installation discussion. My family has concerns regarding the safety portion of this project in relation to the proximity of our lot line with jacking up the house, the wood cribbing, block towers, steel beams necessary to raise the house spilling into our yard. The foundation removal, excavation, and pile driving portions create excess dirt, silt runoff, and during heavy rains and flood tides could potentially cause runoffs down their sloped yard, which in turn would fill up our back patio. We would like to know the plans for stormwater management, silt fence, silt sock, and construction safety fencing implementation during construction, along with final cleanup plans. We have concerns that the house does not fit the current cottage aesthetic of the neighborhood now. The plans show what looks to be a two-family home with 2 staircases, 2 kitchens, 2 family rooms, etc. It'll be 5,000 square feet towering over us on pilings, which will dwarf any homes in the area. This is not the right message the town should be approving. It's not the aesthetic the neighborhood wants, and the town should not grant or approve this type of precedence in a coastal community like Green Harbor. My family, which includes my siblings, my children, nieces, nephews, and mother, all 22 of us, would like to go on the record in opposition to the proposed addition. Should the board and the town disregard any or all of our concerns and approve the applicant's request for their proposed addition, we'd like to have a few items added to the order of conditions. We would like an instrument survey concrete corner bounds installed to establish a clear and definitive lot line. We would like an impact-resistant, stormwater-grade privacy fence installed, as now the house will be on pilings open underneath, creating a direct path to the ever-flooding marsh, washing all the debris right under their house down into our yard, along with maintaining said fence in perpetuity. We would ask that the town committees, departments, to look at the feasibility of moving the newly proposed addition and existing house a few feet off of our property lot line as a courtesy. We've looked at the town of Marshfield and their respective related departments to enforce any codes, requirements, the new building energy code, and the like to ensure this proposed project is done by the book, following any applicable laws, bylaws, and rules. In closing, we're not looking to create a hostile situation, bad neighbors or bad blood. We're trying to look at the best ways of preserving our home, our property, and our neighborhood, all while respecting and adhering to professional building and business practices that we are all held so highly to, as well as extending common neighborly courtesy, all while our community is constantly improving. My family and I would like to thank you for your time and consideration of this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, do you have anything?
No, other than, they've got a floodplain permit, they've got conservation approval, the conservation agreed with moving it to the 5 feet, or beyond the 5 feet of the lot line. They're gonna be elevating on piers. I did meet with the neighbors, and I understand their concerns. And of course, like every project, we're gonna make sure that they build it according to the building code and all applicable standards.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
I just have a question. Andrew, what does happen if if something happens as a result of it being lifted up and the water does come up there and the neighbors ended up getting more water than they normally do? Is that, is that something that
I mean, it is something that the Conservation Commission generally looks at, is their charge is to make sure that whatever development they're approving is going to not create any adverse or cumulative adverse effects to that property or surrounding properties. So it is something that the Conservation Commission generally looks at. And, currently you have a non-compliant structure. They're going to take that structure and make it compliant. And, when it comes to floodplain management, that's what we're looking for. And generally, removing a non-compliant structure and making it compliant is going to lessen the impacts of flooding generally.
Anyone else?
Have you been to conservation yet?
Yes, got approval from conservation 2 or 3 weeks ago. The only thing I'll comment to as far as the flooding goes, currently we're on cement foundation with floodgates within the cement foundation. We have I think, about 2 to 3 feet of pea stone packed into the ground underneath the existing foundation. That pea stone will stay there in some ways of erosion control. Where the neighbor is concerned about flooding into their patio area, there's currently no structure that sits between the patio area and the marsh. So if there was flooding that would come through, there's nothing currently blocking their property from that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Seeing there's none, I'm gonna move.
Got one?
Oh. Name and address for the record?
Brian Fabrizio, 101 Avon Street, abutters to the proposed project. I'd like to start by saying that if it weren't for some good friends and neighbors in Green Harbor, our family may not have been here tonight. As of today, our family has yet to receive any notice or communication of this meeting. We unfortunately had to find out through word of mouth. I'm not sure whose responsibility it is to notify the surrounding community and especially the abutters and properties most impacted by such a project, but I would say that that warrants some looking into. There are 4 points from 305-10.12 of the Marshfield Municipal Code that I would like to highlight that we as a family and as a community feel the project does not fulfill. And I'll just quote from item A of 305-10.12 of the Marshfield Municipal Code. It states, and I quote, "Before granting a special permit for extension or alteration of such non-conforming use or structure, the board, with due regard to the nature and condition of all adjacent structures and uses in the district within which the same is located, shall find all of the following general conditions to be fulfilled," end quote. Keyword here being all, in order to grant a special permit. So item number 2 of that, and I'll quote, "The requested extension or alteration of the use or structure is essential or desirable to the public convenience or welfare," end quote. The public opinion is that this proposed project is neither essential nor desirable to the neighborhood. Item number 6 from the Marshfield Municipal Code states that, quote, "The requested extension or alteration of the use or structure will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining zones, nor be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare," end quote. Again, to my brother's point earlier, going from 2,900 square feet to nearly 5,000 square feet clearly impacts the character of this cottage community. Creating a 2-family home in a cottage community clearly impacts the character of the community. And our home has a deck on the north side of the house directly adjacent to the proposed addition. This deck currently receives 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight per day. Our mother uses that deck on a daily basis, as getting to the beach during the warmer weather is a challenge at her age. So this proposed addition would not only cast a perpetual shadow on the deck, but also on the entire house. And being deprived of sunlight is certainly detrimental to the health and well-being of an individual, especially someone of our mother's age. Item number 8 states, and I quote, "The extended or altered use or structure will not be substantially different in character," end quote. I think we made our points abundantly clear here about this proposed addition and being very different in character from what is currently constructed. And item number 9 from the Marshfield Municipal Code states that, quote, "The extended or altered use or structure will not be more detrimental or objectionable to the neighborhood," end quote. We're here as a family and as taxpayers in the town of Marshfield to say that we object to the proposed addition. And after speaking to a number of the elderly and seasonal residents in the community who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, there's a strong objection to the proposed addition that coincides with raising the entire house and putting it onto pilings. We're speaking on behalf of our family and the neighborhood to say that we do not want this proposed project for the community. So to reiterate to the board, we'd like for the board to take into strong considerations item 2, 6, 8, and 9, as we feel that these items are not being fulfilled. And lastly, as a fact of the matter, the reason we're here before you tonight voicing our concerns is because of a recent remodeling project at 19 Pearl Street that was discovered by the town of Marshfield. This project had been built with disregard for the town's building, zoning, and conservation requirements, resulting in an enclosed porch below floodplain elevation. Because of these actions, the building department is now requiring that their proposed addition, an existing non-conforming home, be raised up put on pilings at 6+ feet higher than it already is. This disregard for authority comes at our family home's expense. If approved, the new project before you will cast a literal eternal shadow on our home, all because someone didn't want to follow the rules. Is this the type of project that you'll reward the petitioners for poor behavior and deceptive practices by granting them a special permit? I would truly hope that the town and this board would not set such a precedent, and our community does too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have questions?
Just to clarify, this is a single-family home?
Yes, as we've stated multiple times, and in the drawings, it is a single-family home.
Thank you.
The previous construction that happened, that was found or whatever, did that get approved, like, after the fact? Is that like, that deal done?
Something on that property got
We have-
moved after the fact, it might have been
This-
Concom stuff.
We had permits and drawings stamped and approved by the town.
Something on that property was done, I'm not sure what it was that had to come back to get approval after the fact. I'm not sure what, it might have been Concom stuff, I'm not sure, but it was something that was approved after the fact. Is there any reason why you guys went to Concom first and not us?
We were
That's-
told what to do.
That's what we were told by the town.
You told by the town to go to conservation first?
By whom in the town?
Don't do that.
I don't remember.
You don't know.
I can speak to a couple of things here if you'd like.
Sure.
So again, I gotta reiterate, people are supposed to go to zoning first, so if anybody from the town that wasn't me told you that, then they were misinformed. The proper procedure is to go through the zoning process first. You can waive the requirement to go to the zoning first, but you have to specifically waive it. That's kind of moot because we're already here. Just to speak to what was brought up about a violation, the construction that happened was 8 years ago. We're resolving that violation and the fact that the porch itself is the only aspect of the house that's non-compliant. The foundation, as the applicant said, is compliant, has flood vents in it. It's just that the porch that was constructed is too low. So they have to elevate the structure because I believe they weren't able to architecturally just raise the floor of the porch. And as a result of having to raise the structure, they decided to create the addition. As far as how far up they would have to raise the structure, for FEMA or building code standards, they'd only have to go up about a foot or less. The Conservation Commission is supposed to say how high that they want it. But clearly, the applicant is desiring to go higher than what is required, and there's no restriction currently about how high somebody wants to go in a flood zone other than the overall building height.
So it meets all the criteria, Andrew?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
As far as some of the other points that were made, if you drive anywhere around the area, about every new house that's being built is on pilings. And we are certainly not going to be the biggest or the tallest house in the area.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I mean, I just have to say, I live down that area, you are going to be the biggest on that street, and you are going to be. The next one up is coming up on Brighton Street.
Sure,
You
on that-
definitely are going to be the biggest one by
On that
a significant amount.
street of 6 houses, yes.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, that's not a factual statement, is what I'm saying. It's- you are-
I said in the neighborhood. On that street of 6 houses, you are correct, we will be the biggest
You are
house.
going to be significantly bigger. too.
I believe we already are, to be fair.
I am aware of folks that have spent a small fortune elevating their home to a specific flood elevation, only to find out the federal government goes in and changes the required flood elevation, and then they have to raise it a second time.
Yeah.
So I understand it's prudent while you've got South Shore pile driving out there or whomever to raise it and give yourself a bit of a cushion when someone in Washington decides that the flood elevation is now, 16 feet versus 14 feet.
We've noticed, just anecdotally over the past year, we've noticed significant more flooding off of winter storms just in the past year or so.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Andrew, can you put up 1 to 10 again? Thank you. Any other questions?
So my only concern is the fact that going through these 1 to 10, right? Part of that is the view of the neighborhood, whether a neighborhood is a street or if it's the general district, but the fact that no abutters were notified that this was happening.
They were notified, they're here.
I can speak to that, actually. We did speak to the abutters in question in person before about, not necessarily about this specific meeting, but as far as I remember, but
Nancy, is the notice?
She has the list anyways.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
requested the abutters
I have the list,
and-
and I just want to know, just the city of where your mailing address is?
It's 135 Pleasant Street.
That's where it went.
What's that?
That's where it went.
Nothing ever came.
Yeah.
Does it go certified mail or does it go?
Zoning does not send certified.
So that you get an abutters list from the Board of Assessors
assessor.
based on the GIS
300
maps.
300 feet within the
And
parcel.
that's who gets notice, in addition to notice being in the newspaper and being on the town's website.
Correct.
Okay.
Which we also paid for notice in the newspaper as well. I have receipts for.
Yeah.
We also, one of the residents of our home spoke directly to the resident of their home as well, informing them of our project and our plans.
All right, any other questions?
Could we see the plans again, just to see the layout of the first floor where?
Andrew, can you pull up the plans again? Oh, he's in the bathroom, so we gotta wait.
Say that.
He'll pull it up in a sec.
Thank you.
We can start, what was your concern with the plan? We have copies right here.
Yeah, my brother could speak to it better than I, as he's the contractor, but,
Okay.
you know, from what we had previously seen, it looked like there were 2 kitchens on the plans.
Could we comment on that?
Yeah, does any,
Yeah,
do you
Andrew-
have something that showed that? I mean,
Andrew is going to approve based on the application, he'll approve what's
it's
filed.
a single family, not.
Which is a single-family home. It's not an application for a two-family home, it's a single-family home.
Like, they won't get occupancy if they did that.
What is your question about it?
He thinks there's 2 kitchens. He thinks he saw 2 kitchens, so he just wants to confirm by seeing
Correct.
the
You think
plans.
it's a two-family, is that what you're saying, or? Okay.
Correct.
So they didn't apply for a two-family,
I understand that.
so they not getting approved for a two-family, so if they do a two-family, they won't get, they're not gonna get their occupancy permit, nothing will go through, because they come out and take periodic,
Inspections.
thank you.
Okay.
So they do, throughout the process, they are getting inspected.
They're checks and
Yes.
balances.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it would be approved as a 1-family.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'll leave 1 to 10 up. Do you have any more questions, anyone? Seeing that there's no more questions, I'm gonna move that we close Cut River Meadow Irrevocable Trust, Patrick Ring, trustee, 19 Pearl Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensey, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Meg Conley, aye.
Jean Lee, no.
Mac Brothers, aye.
I'm gonna move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a special permit subject to the conditions. This project will require compliance with the floodplain bylaw, a building permit, a final as-built, and a certificate of occupancy. Based on the findings that the applicants proposed to construct a 28-foot by 35-foot two-story addition and a patio with pergola on the northerly side of the existing single-family dwelling on the property located at 19 Pearl Street and shown on a site plan approved by prepared by Merrill Engineers and Land Surveys Dana Altobello P.E. dated June 26, 2024, and preliminary project plans dated July 30th, 2024 by B.F. Architects, Bill for Canary Architects, 4 pages, meets the special permit criteria of the section 1012 of the bylaw. Does everyone agree with number 1 through 10?
Larry Keane, I do.
Grover Hensey, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
No, Betty Conley, no.
Jean Lee, no.
Mac Brothers, no.
All right. So do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensel, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
How do you call me now?
Jean Lee, no.
Mac Brothers, no.
Thank you.
So what was the vote? Brian, can you just
4 to
confirm the
1.
vote?
4 to 1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jennifer Hamel, 2463. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to raise the existing structure and construct a new 29-foot 8 by 42-foot 5, 2.5-story dwelling on the property located at 278 Foster Avenue, which is further identified on the assessor's map as being on parcel L10-2204, located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead. Name and address for the record.
Richard Burchill, I am Jennifer's agent and contractor.
I'm Jennifer Hamill, 278 Foster Ave in Marshfield.
Go ahead.
Basically, Jennifer purchased the house to renovate it. The house is so compromised, it's unable to be renovated within the rules of FEMA and, half the value of the structure to do the proper renovation. So we moved on to take the house down, put it on piles, and rebuild it. After consulting with Andrew on this project, he kind of gave us a line by light item of what to do. I believe we've fulfilled all of that. So we've basically taken the original house, and in the proposed house, we're going to squeeze the house a little narrower right now on the sides. The house is non-conforming on the sides. Each side's roughly 1.5 feet from the neighbor. So we're bringing it into 5 feet and a few inches. So the house will be narrower. We're doing 2 floors on piles, and the 3rd floor will be a roof deck, which is basically access through the roof line. And that's really it.
All right. Andrew, you have anything to add?
No, Rich pretty much stated everything there. They've got a floodplain permit. Like I said in the comments, they are using the Belalta standard to.
I saw that.
Right now, they're 6 feet on this side. They're looking to go 5.1, so they're going to extend that nonconformity as long as the board makes us a finding that that extension of the nonconformity is no more substantially detrimental than the existing nonconformity. And they are, like I said, 1.5 feet on this side, so they're gonna make that over 5 feet so that they won't, you'll have all the required fire separation distance that is required by the building code. So, yeah, everything else, Rich has been working with me throughout this whole process from start to finish.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the board have questions?
I just think it's an attractive design,
Anyone from the audience?
given the limitations you have. Did a great job.
Yes.
Name and address for the record?
Frederick Majensky, 272 Foster Ave.
Go ahead.
When you rebuild, isn't the new building limited to the footprint of the building that is there because it's non-conforming?
No.
Why?
It's pre-existing non-conforming, so they have a right to seek a special permit, subject to the special permit criteria.
Fine, so where are they gonna park?
What was that? I
Where
can't
are
hear
they
you.
gonna park? Park their vehicles?
Well, currently, we have 5 spots out front, and if the house does go the height that we're asking, we'll perhaps
Next
be able to
question.
park under.
They don't have 5 spots. Second question is, it's going up on pilings. What type of pilings are they gonna put it on?
Wood,
And how are they gonna get in the ground?
pile-driven.
Next question?
You can't pile
Next
drive.
question.
You can't pile drive in the location that the house is located on, because
Okay,
it's too close to existing dwellings.
okay, next
And the
question.
new seawall will limit the vibration from it.
Okay, thank you. Next
So
question?
it'll affect adjacent buildings.
All right. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, I don't see where they're gonna park with the size of the building. They'll be in the street.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Seeing that there's none?
So,
Anything else from the board?
do you want to do any above stuff here?
What's up?
Stuff here.
I saw the sketch, right? Move forward, accept sketch. Okay.
Proper architectural plans, staging areas. Any of this stuff?
You can ask whatever you want.
So, I mean, as far as like staging areas and, do you have a proper architectural plans here instead of the drawn ones? Are you?
Yeah,
you-
those
you
are the
submit those to
architectural
Andrew?
plans, that's the scale.
Okay.
And then the engineer has the stamp framing plans.
Okay, okay, and then is there gonna be staging areas there?
Excuse me?
Staging areas for working, like for work and what have you? Like, where are you gonna be doing? It's very cozy over there, so,
Yeah, no,
It's tight.
We're gonna have to have a lull to get the materials up. And again, the front of the house has got 12 to 15, I think, as you can see, you've got almost 12 feet out front. And then we have although there is no sidewalk, there is a street.
right.
So, I mean, it's the same condition for every other house that's doing construction in the area.
So we always ask these
Yeah,
questions.
so basically.
There's nothing
we'll-
abnormal for us to ask
yeah,
these questions.
Materials will
of
be
you.
delivered as needed. We're not gonna drop, 3 floors of lumber out there. It'll be on call.
Just, it's very
Just in
cozy, so
time.
that's why we're asking. What'd you say, Mac?
Just in time,
Oh,
it's a standard.
what?
Anything else?
I'm good.
Anything from the audience? Seeing that there's none. I'm gonna move that we close 2463 Jennifer Hamill, 278 Foster Ave. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensel, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
I'm gonna move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a special permit subject to the conditions. This project will require compliance with the floodplain bylaw, a building permit, a final as-built, and a certificate of occupancy, based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to raise the existing structure and construct a new 29-foot 8 by 42-foot 3, 2.5-story dwelling on the property located at 278 Foster Avenue and shown on site plan prepared by Merrill Engineers and Surveyors, Brennan Sullivan, P.E., dated August 6, 2024, in hand-drawn sketch plans, 6 pages, meets the special permit criteria of section 1012 of the bylaw. Andrew, can you put up 1 to 10 so we can agree with those? Thank you. Does everyone agree with 1 through 10?
Larry Keane, I do.
I do.
Brian Sullivan, I do.
Brian Murphy, I do.
I do, Heidi Conway.
Jean Lee, I do.
Mac Brothers, I do.
All right, do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensel, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
guys
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
Appreciate it.
Now we have Miriam McDonald, 2464. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 14-foot by 24-foot 6 two-story front garage addition and 6 by 10-foot single-story front entry with 10-foot 8 by deck on the property located at 26 Foster Ave, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel M090113 and located in the R3 zoning district. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Carly Tobias, here for Miriam McDonald for 26 Foster Ave, Marshfield, Massachusetts. And we are looking to propose and build a second story with a garage, foyer with a roof and front deck and proposed back deck. Not. So there is a new site plan. Actually, is that the one that's been?
Do you know the date?
It is 8/28/2024.
Yes,
That's
the
the
one that
left
doesn't-
side of the house. We initially had a 1-foot, 3-foot jog, and I changed it to a 9-inch jog to meet the pre-existing setbacks. So I think that's not it. It's the other one, Andrew. I have it here, drafted. Yes. So this one has a 9-inch jog instead of a 1-foot, 3-inch jog where the garage is to meet the pre-existing setbacks. And Stembeck and Taylor will be going to conservation for this proposed second-story addition with the garage and room above, proposed deck, foyer, and proposed deck in the back.
Any questions from the board? Andrew, you have anything to add?
Like I said, I don't give comments to other boards and commissions for projects that are in flood zones that haven't applied for a floodplain permit. And we don't have a floodplain permit for this application, so I don't feel it's appropriate for me to give comments on this project.
All right, thank you. Bob, you have anything?
No, the only thing I added was there was a shed in the front, just make sure you don't condone.
We don't endorse the shed, okay. Anything else from the board? Seeing that there's none, I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a special
Move to
permit.
close the hearing.
Oh, sorry, move to close.
He's tired.
I went out. Move to close 2464 Miriam McDonald, 26 Foster Ave. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensey, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Collier.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
So I'm going to move that the board vote to grant petitioner's application for a special permit subject to the conditions. This project requires compliance with the floodplain bylaw, an as-built, and a certificate of occupancy. Based on the findings that the applicant proposed to construct a 14-foot by 24-foot 6 two-story front garage addition and 6-foot 10 single-story front entry with a 10-foot by 8-foot deck on the property located at 26 Foster Ave, shown on a certified location plan, Stembeck and Taylor Incorporated, dated August 8th, 2024, Richards Font, PLS, and progress set of plans dated July 22nd, 2024, Rockwood Design, Dick Rockwood, 14 pages, meets the special permit criteria, section 1012 of the bylaw. Do we all agree that 1 through 10 applies to this?
I do.
I do.
Grover Hensey, aye.
Brian Sullivan, I do.
Brian Murphy, I do.
Heidi Collier, I do. Jean Lee, I do.
Mac Brothers, I do.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensey, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Collier, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You know you have to get a floodplain permit.
Yes, I was gonna say, so now I have to get a floodplain permit. I
Don't
forgot
forget to
confirm
get
that as well. Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
All right, so now we have 2465 Seafarers Realty Trust. In accordance with 305-1009 of the Marshfield Municipal Code, the petitioner is seeking an appeal of the building commissioner's decision to deny the issuance of a building permit due to the abandonment of variance in accordance with 305-1011 of the Marshfield Municipal Code, for relief from 307-907, abandonment, and a special permit in accordance with 305-1010, 305-902, to relocate the reconstructed non-conforming detached family residence, residential condo unit, which has been removed for more than 2 years in the property located at 7 Truant's Island, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel G190207, is located in the R1 zoning district. Go ahead, name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone, again. Attorney Steve Gard, 1165 Washington Street, Hanover, representing the applicant. With me this evening is Jim Tarbox, the trustee of the trust that owns the property. I would like to say at the outset, Jim is a partner in this property with Mr. and Mrs. Corwin, who are also in the gallery this evening. So as the public notice was read, we have an appeal of the building inspector's decision to not grant a building permit. We have an application for a petition for a variance and an application for a special permit. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. My narrative is pretty detailed. I apologize. Took me a little bit to wind way through the history of the island, and I won't repeat all of that, of course, but I think it's important for me to articulate what I believe to be the nexus between the relief that's being requested for the variance and how we got to the point where we needed relief from the 2-year abandonment provision. So the petitioner is the owner of the Unit 7 of the Rum Island condominium in Truants Island, located in the R1 residential zoning district. The petitioner has achieved approvals from the condominium association to relocate Unit 7 to another part of the island. The Marshfield Conservation Commission has also approved the plans, full set of Concom plans. The Marshfield Board of Health has approved the plans, and the North River Commission has also approved the plans to construct a detached single-family residential dwelling on the relocated exclusive use area of Unit 7. So this is a single lot that had 13 residential structures on it. And it's not divided up like into individual lot areas. It's divided up into what you would perceive in your mind to be unit areas, like exclusive use areas for each of the residential homes, each of the residential homes being a unit with their lot area next to it being their yard. So picture it that way. It's a little different than what we're normally used to seeing, and it's very unique in the sense that it's because it was an island and it existed long before the adoption of zoning or subdivision control, as well as in fact, it goes all the way back to like 1917 when Arthur Emery bought the island and then created a small family compound for himself, which kind of brings me to this Unit 7. So Mr. Emery created this compound, and these houses around his family were located very close to each other. And Unit 7, which we call now, was located very close to Mr. Tarbox's unit and Mr. Corwin's unit on either side. So I know it's been suggested that the unit was removed in 2014. It was done under a validly issued demolition permit from the building department. It was removed to accommodate Mr. Corwin's addition to the home. Mr. Corwin's home has been updated and renovated over the years in small ways, but there was one time in 2014 where they built an addition. I am representing, based on what I've been told, is that was not the case. This Unit 7 structure was taken down because Mr. Tarbox and Mr. Corwin bought it together because they didn't want someone living in between them, and they got permission from the condo association to relocate it to the other side of the island. It wasn't relocated in 2014 when they took it down because neither one of them were ready to move. Mr. Tarbox is now ready to move. He's selling his home and he wants to build another new home on the other side of the island, basically based on the representations in the agreement and their understanding back in 2014. So as you can see, that when Andrew's letter was written and suggested that the 2-year abandonment provision applied to the condo association in this Unit 7, Mr. Tarbox and Mr. Corwin were shocked. They had no idea that this was the case, and they just assumed because it was a condo that it would forever be able to, be rebuilt because there were 13 units on the island. They were allowed to be 13 units on the island. Granted, a misunderstanding on their part. Completely understand that, but that was their understanding at the time. So the reason that I bring up the history of the island and the condominium association and the way it was condominiumized and subject to the condominium statute is to sort of create the nexus between the state of mind of the owners of the property and the relief that's being requested. It's our position that under the variance, it meets the criteria as the lot shape, topography, and soil conditions are pretty unique. It's an island, and it's very difficult in the sense that it's different from any other property in the district itself. It's unique in that sense. Certainly, it meets the hardship criteria because there's no way you could use this Unit 7 anymore without a variance for the 2-year abandonment provision. And again, it wasn't by malice or intent. It was a misunderstanding and a reliance upon the title configuration of the island itself to neglect the 2-year abandonment provision of the bylaw. So and then, of course, it in the sense that it doesn't create a special privilege in the neighborhood, this neighborhood is made up of 12 other homes, all of which I think 99% of them are in favor of the application. They all signed the more than 2/3 approval under the Condominium Association documents to relocate Unit 7 to the other side of the island. The Lot 7, or Unit 7, has already been somewhat cleared. in anticipation of the building the structure. If Mr. Tarbox and Mr. and Mrs. Corwin suspected that the 2-year provision would have applied to the condominium unit, they certainly would have either not torn it down at the time and left it there to protect their rights, or they would have relocated it if they could financially do so within that 2-year period, or at least asked for an extension, et cetera, given the financial times at that time. It wasn't financially really feasible, and neither one of them wanted to move. They just always thought they would keep this for a move later on when the kids left off for college and things like that. So that's why the narrative is a little bit long in the tooth, so to speak, and goes into the history of the island. Again, the variance itself is, it was created a condominium in 1973. It became lots, in the exclusive use areas became the, quote, lots for the houses. The units under the underlying zoning authority was that the 13 detached single-family homes were grandfathered because they existed prior to the adoption of zoning, long before zoning. Many of the structures on the island have been reconstructed. They have been renovated, expanded, and some of them have even burned down and then reconstructed long after the 2-year period had expired. For whatever reason, I'm not suggesting that we're suggesting that that applies to us, but for whatever reason on the island, it seems to be that I think everyone was led to, in their minds, the condo association, the subjecting the property to the condominium statute allowed these sort of things. And then when it came to light with Andrew's letter that, well, it really doesn't, you still have to follow the zoning bylaw, everybody was confused and shocked. But I even think that in the past, building inspectors thought because it's 13 units, it gets to be 13 units. If it's a condo building with 13 units, you don't lose a unit because you've stopped using it, you get to do the unit again. But nonetheless, that's really the argument for the variance. But I do understand, so my application is for the variance for the 2-year provision, and then the board would need to issue also a special permit because we have a non-conforming lot with 12 non-conforming structures, and we would be reconstructing and relocating the 13th structure. Kind of like what you folks did on, I think it was Summer Street. I think you just recently did that on Summer Street. You did a little swap with a non-conforming structure, and you allowed the applicant to make a bigger one closer to the water, I think, on North Street. Forgive me, I'm paraphrasing. I wasn't part of that case. But nonetheless, the special permit would be obviously you'd have to find whether there's an intensification by reconstructing this 13th unit in the new location on Unit 7's new exclusive use area, and whether or not that reconstruction and relocation would be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming use. So that's how I saw it through the application process. And I did apply to appeal Andrew's decision to preserve our rights. But as you can see, that I'm not conceding that Andrew's letter is correct, but I have very little to offer with respect to Andrew's letter. So, but I'm not conceding. Don't giggle. Now, the other thing that I think the board would have jurisdiction to allow the relief in some fashion for the applicant in this very difficult time for him, because he has sold his home and he has invested substantial amounts of money into relocating and reconstructing this Unit 7 house, is that you could treat it as an extension or alteration of a non-conforming use, in that the lot's non-conforming and we're requesting that 13th unit be reconstructed. The history of the property shows 13 units. The applicant's neighbors and the people on Maycomber's Ridge and the road leading into the island have issued letters of support. I think Nancy said they're in the 14 or 15 range of letters in support for this, this application. You could then say, well, under this, avoid the variance altogether. And I'm sorry if I'm confusing you, I'm not trying to at all. Avoid the variance altogether, go to the special permit, and then make a finding that, after we obviously vet it and go through the plan, that the addition of the 13th home is an intensification under 48 Section 6. And then, you know, this next step is well, is that intensification substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing nonconformity, meaning the 12 to 13? So I see it as this, really, there's 3 avenues of relief: the variance for the 2-year abandonment, then the special permit after the variance, meaning you treat it like the house was there, the Unit 7 was there, and we just want to relocate it. And then the third avenue would be treating it as if the house isn't there and we're asking for a 13th structure under the special permit as an extension or alteration of a non-conforming use. So as far as backup goes, and I understand that intent is not a factor under the abandonment provision, and that's not what this is for. This is not why I'm going to suggest this, and I understand, but this is more to show that it was, the applicants and the town thought this was a building unit the whole time. The field card that I submitted into the application materials clearly shows that the lot is assessed at a very high value. It's not just vacant land on an island of whatever, 10,000 square feet. They paid the taxes on this lot since 2014 when the house was taken down as if it was a structure in the house. There was no changes in that at all. And then they paid their full share of the condominium fees. The condominium fees the condo association required them to pay the 1/3. Mr. Tarbox actually paid 2/13. He paid for his house and he paid for this other house, which wasn't there, in order to, so that the condo association would allow this 13th unit to remain in existence, at least on paper, on the master deed and on the master deed site plan attached to the master deed at the Registry of Deeds. Yes?
When you say his house and this abandoned house, can you just identify what houses you're talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Number 6,
So-
number 7?
That's a good point. So Mr. Tarbox lives, if you're facing the front of the house off
can
of
use
Truant's
numbers.
Lane, it's 6. He lives in 6.
Okay.
This house was 7, and the Corwins are 8. Is it 8? And Corwins are 8. So it's just like that.
Okay.
7 was in the middle, 6 and 8. And the Corwins bought it together when it came on the market because they didn't want to see someone come and build a massive house there. And it's pretty tight because, like I said, it was Mr. Emery's family compound, so he wanted his family nearby. And it doesn't lend itself to today's modern building, and they're not family, so let's buy it. We'll get permission from the condo association to relocate it. And that's really what was happening, and they had no idea that they had to do it in 2 years. So we're, falling on the mercy of the court, so to speak, in that we're asking, but I do think there are valid forms of relief that the board can grant in order to allow this unit to be reconstructed on another part of the island. And if you would, already not conforming, let's just see, house. 7. The only thing I would add is that, and this is up to Brian, the chair, if he would like a couple of the letters, the support letters, to be read into the record, that's fine. I understand there's
I don't
15.
want them read into the record. You can show them to us.
Okay,
Nancy had one.
Nancy had 15 of them, or
Yeah,
whatever.
they're in our
Yeah.
packets. They're in the record because they're already there.
It's always helpful to obtain them. I find them singularly unpersuasive.
Well, these people are in favor of this project, so
Not your specific letters,
Yeah.
just letters in support.
my letters are good. I think the reason the letters are important in this regard is because, as I know this board and any other board that I go before, when you're asking for relief that involves a variance, they take into consideration the neighbor's opinions highly. And when you talk about a special permit for a pre-existing non-conforming structure, and you're asking yourselves, is this substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, then what better to hear from than the neighbors?
Right.
Then the neighborhood.
Than the neighborhood, the entire neighborhood, pretty much the entire neighborhood.
So I don't know if anyone else was able, but I couldn't get out there for a site
I went out.
visit. Yeah, because I hit the wrong
I
tide.
didn't hit the right time either.
I went out, I drove.
Hence
No,
the uniqueness of this place.
I should
Yeah.
know that.
Hence the uniqueness.
Tell me something, when you raised the property, you got a permit to raise the property?
Yep.
And you took it down. Now, when you did that, you were in the building commissioner's office at the time. Did he advise you of any of this? Did he tell you that it was not going to be able? Did he advise you on a 2-year timeframe? I know, as
Well-
Andrew had stated earlier, he's very open. I know it wasn't Andrew that was in the position at the time, but
Yeah.
Andrew was very open and very.
I think it was Jeff that got the demo permit, right? Did you? You didn't get the demo permit, did you? Yeah, Mr. Corwin got the demo permit. So
Yeah.
if Mr. Corwin could answer the question, I think you'll hear that it wasn't discussed. He had no idea. And while there is, Andrew has assumed, or his understanding is that this house was taken down for the expansion, but Mr. Corwin has told me specifically that it wasn't. It was just taken down because they wanted to move it to the other side of the island, and then, but when they were ready to move, and that's really, and they had no idea that they couldn't land bank it, whatever you want to call it, and then, go ahead. Jeff.
Sure. I'm Jeff Corwin. I live at 8 Truant's Island. I'm neighbor to Jim and Beth Tarbucks. Yeah, so no one, when we demolished that, no one told us that we had to do anything particularly unique to maintain whatever we needed to maintain. We assumed that our contribution and fees and island fees for Unit 7 maintained
was like
the
a
integrity of
placeholder.
that. Sorry?
It was like a placeholder.
Yeah.
Yes.
For that unit.
Yes.
And you didn't just tear down the structure, you went and got a permit to play by the rules.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
With that also, when you were speaking with the building commissioner at the time, had you expressed your desire, what you would want to do in the future? Had you brought up that fact that your desire would be to relocate this at another time?
I don't think I specifically had that conversation with him. No, we never said that we would.
Because I would imagine, anything out there even 10 years ago, was a valuable piece of property, you'd be tearing it down, and I'd be thinking, well, why are you tearing down a perfectly good home on a beautiful island,
Well, it wasn't a perfect, it was a very disheveled, tired.
No, I understand
yeah.
why you took it down.
Right.
But a structure being there on an island, an exclusive area that it is, it was valuable as a dilapidated structure. There was a substantial value to it at that point.
I suspect that because they were so aghast at learning about the 2-year thing that I suspect that Mr. Cohen had no idea that would like to share the
Pretty much
to
what I'm getting.
yeah, to share the idea.
Today.
Would have told him.
Never advised him.
Oh, he would have told him.
Andrew would probably put it in writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't have the confidence that the building commissioner in 2014 would have done that.
I just don't think Mr. Corwin, not being a contractor or a developer, he didn't even know he should have shared the plan of relocating the house. He knew that the condo association agreed to it, and he figured that's all he needed.
What I would add, I'm sorry, what I would add is that we would do anything we would need to financially, legal-wise, permit-wise, to maintain the integrity of that unit that we shared together. It would not have been hard for us to pursue that if we knew we had to. That's a mistake we made, and we should have done that.
So I have a question. So you're saying, number one, that you pay taxes on that structure the entire time, not just the lot,
Yeah.
you paid it on the structure, so.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
one thing. The other way is, are you saying that you can't get a permit now for that lot? Did you ask Andrew if you can get a permit? for
Yeah.
that lot
Yes.
now?
Correct.
No, you
He denied the application, Heidi, for a building
And
permit.
then you
Yes.
timely appealed his decision.
I did. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think you meet the standard for the granting of a variance.
Understood.
So I am personally, speaking solely for myself, I am opposed to granting you a variance. However, the way I see this is, as you argued, I think you have a pre-existing non-conforming use, and you are modifying your pre-existing non-conforming use, arguably restoring your pre-existing non-conforming use, going from 13 to 12 back to 13. And that's the relief that I would be inclined to grant. I would be inclined to deny your request for a variance, because I don't think you meet the standard. I mean, as you know, it's an extraordinarily high standard, virtually no one meets it.
It is, and that's why there's that third sort of tier of authority that I mentioned in the beginning, that it would be that consideration. And I think with the fact that there was a house there before can weigh into your decision to grant it as far as the intensification goes and the neighborhood detriment. And of course, again, I'll reiterate the letters. We've got letters from everybody in the neighborhood, pretty much. Yeah.
I would tend to agree with that we could uphold, if the board sees fit, that we could uphold Andrew's decision, not granting the denial of his denial, approving his denial of this, but allowing that there were 13 units at one point, now there's 12, and they're just going back to 13.
Okay.
So.
How do you feel,
Does
Paul?
Andrew have anything to say about this? Other than his comments?
I just go back. I'm a simple guy. I go back. If I think of this as a condominium unit, if it were a building and there were 13 units in it and two neighbors bought one in the middle and split it, right, and reconfigured it to use it as they want, and then at some point in the future, they wanted to recreate that 13th and do so. They've been paying for it, they paid the condo fees, they paid the taxes. I have no problems whatsoever. I agree that, yeah, legally, the appeal, I think.
I think Andrew's thing holds.
Andrew's right.
Yeah.
Andrew's right, unfortunately, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't find a way to get this house built.
And I think that's the special permit mechanism. I appreciate that. I do.
I agree that Andrew's appeal should stand, but we should, if there was supposed to be 13 houses, let's
That's what I
do
feel.
the
I feel
13.
like
I
if
mean,
you had 13 in a building,
Yeah.
someone didn't live in the 13th one or something.
And they shouldn't, I mean, I have a different opinion, as usual, but there was supposed to be 13, and there's 12, you shouldn't have taken it down. And if you had taken it down, you should have rebuilt it to keep the 13th. That's how I personally feel about it.
Yep.
I think Andrew made the right decision, to be honest.
I agree with him. I think we all
Do I
agree.
think that if it's a lot that has some value that you should be able to build on it? I think that's like a building commissioner's thing, show them a building and
Yeah.
give us plans for a building and, we'll deal with that. I just think that Andrew's decision was correct.
So Bob, would we be able to decide this on a special permit?
I think it's up to your board to decide this.
Right, but we can decide if.
I think
we want.
Andrew's opinion was absolutely correct.
Yeah, Andrew's right. We all
Andrew was
agree.
right.
I haven't seen any appellate paperwork, so the paperwork that I have is just an application for a special permit and an application for variance.
Okay.
And I asked Andrew if he had received any notice, because the building inspector, in addition to the Board of Appeals, gets notice of an appeal, and Andrew didn't receive any. So I think Andrew's decision gets upheld because,
Yeah, I agree.
under any set of circumstances. And then I think it's up to you all to decide whether it meets the special permit criteria, and then you deny the variances.
Andrew, how do you feel?
I feel awesome, and I don't necessarily disagree with anything Steve said, especially when he described how eloquently I spoke earlier, so.
Did I
Yes,
say
you
eloquent?
Wow.
Yes, you did. But I totally agree with Bob in this case, and I think you guys are all, what I did was a technicality, and I think what you guys are doing are making the way forward so that the technicality is eliminated and I can go on issuing the permit.
All right, that sounds good. Do we have anything from the audience?
Why is it called Rum Island?
That's a good question. Jim is the historian. I think it was probably rum running back then, or yeah, exactly.
So can I ask, just one, maybe this isn't a condition, but can I at least ask something, is that, as a former firefighter, getting onto this island and trying to find number 7 that's not going to be between number 6 and number 8.
Yeah.
Can it be easily identified where number 7 is in case there's an emergency vehicle that needs to access it?
Well, I can add
Good point.
add to that. The fire trucks haven't been able to get out there for the 2 homes that burnt
Oh,
down
yeah,
to
I've
the
been
ground.
out
so-
there a lot, so
Yeah.
I live right
Yeah.
around the corner, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
to find number 7 when it's not between 6 and 8.
We will absolutely do whatever
Make
we.
sure that there's
we will
some kind of
accommodate.
delineation that points that number 7 is actually
Yeah.
going to be the first one you get to on your left if you go the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do we have
all right?
anything from the audience on this?
Yeah.
Anyone
Can
want?
I make a suggestion on that?
Yep.
Is on the as-built, identify all the properties and that we submit it to the fire department and the police department so that they have a permanent as-built, they know where all the individual condos are for emergency response, make that part of the conditions.
Sounds like a good idea. Thank you.
And it's not uncommon for unit numbers not to match like the street address of a condo. So you could have unit 7, but if the fire department, the police department want to call it unit 13, because you got to go around.
They're going to see 12, 11,
Right.
10, 9, 8.
And then nothing there. Yeah.
It's gonna be the
Whatever they want. I'm just pointing out that it's not uncommon to have a unit number that's inconsistent with the street address of a
Yeah, I get it.
of a
I get
condo.
it.
So does anyone else have any more questions?
So we're up, we think that we're up.
Upholding.
We're upholding
Andrew's
it.
Holding Andrew's
Upholding.
decision. Well,
Yes.
Brian's going to speak eloquently and say whatever he's
I'm
going to
still
say.
thinking of the rum runners back in the 30s.
This was an access point.
Bob wrote.
My street's named after a rum runner.
You can go ahead and make
Make
the
a
motion.
close.
Yep. Grover motion to close. I second. All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hens, yeah.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Dean Lee, aye.
Matt Brothers, aye.
Go ahead, Brian. Give it a shot.
I guess the first thing that we would do is we would move to uphold the decision of Building Commissioner Andrew Stewart.
Second?
Larry Keane, aye.
Trevor Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
And then I move that we
Point of
deny the applicant's request for variance.
I was going to withdraw the variance. I was going to, point of clarification, I was going to offer to withdraw the variance.
Oh, withdraw, you'll put that in writing?
Sure.
Send it to Nancy?
Thank you.
Thank you. So then I move that we grant the applicant's request for a special permit under,
Steve, feel free.
Yeah. He doesn't have it memorized?
10.12 of the
Ten.
bylaw.
10.12.
10.12 of the bylaw, specifically finding the applicant's application meets criteria 1 through 10.
I agree.
I agree.
I, Brian Sullivan, I agree.
I agree, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Heidi, I agree. Heidi Conway.
Jean Lee, aye. I
Mac
agree.
Brothers, I agree.
And I move to grant the applicant special permit.
Second?
Larry Keane, aye.
Trevor Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Wow. Thank you very much, folks. This has been a great relief for the applicant. Thank you so much.
Well, you guys played by the rules, so, you really did.
Thanks.
So now we got, is Craig Watson, that's a withdrawal, right?
First two withdrawals.
Did we
had
do
two.
Marjorie right?
On Sunday, he had me out.
So,
I usually do site visits for everybody.
good luck.
Thank you very much, folks.
Steve, what does your boat draw? You probably can't make it, make it up that river.
I can tell you it won't fit another dock.
Thanks, beautiful. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, take care of yourself. Yeah.
All right, good luck.
Beautiful spot.
So we have 2447 Craig Watson, petitioner, 23 Grace Lane. Petitioner requests to withdraw without prejudice. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Trevor Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
I have 2447A Craig Watson, 23 Grace Lane. Petitioner requests to withdraw without prejudice. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Trevor Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Now we have 2455 Marjorie J. Ryan. Another Foster Ave home.
Did you buy your lottery ticket tonight?
And, I'm sorry, I don't have a lawyer with.
Don't be sorry, just tell us what you're doing.
I can't wait. So.
Someone gonna talk first, or do I have to talk? I have to talk.
Just say your name and address.
All right.
Name and address for the record?
My name's Marjorie J. Ryan, and the property I'm talking about is 241 Foster Ave. I also live in Marshfield at 17 Bernard Street. I'm coming in front of you because I would like to add on to the back of my cement patio that I have, that when my parents bought it in the mid-60s, it was still there, and it has now cracked. And as you can see, my husband is now into a wheelchair, and that becomes a trip hazard. And also going for one of my driveways facing out to the ocean, on that left side, there's just a very small space, and there's a step there. One of my sister's girlfriends fell, ended up breaking her collarbone, and I would not like to see that happen to my husband either. My choice now is to raise that up, like basically using a regular wood frame, and raise it up for this step that's, I should have measured it, I'm gonna say it's 6-7 inches high. So it's not that high, so then he can use his wheelchair. At the same time, while I'm doing all this work, I would like to extend it out to, I wanna say my property line, but it's probably like a foot and a half in, because there is a retaining wall there.
and the retaining walls inside my yard.
It sounds pretty
I would,
straightforward.
yes, and I'd like to bring the deck out to the edge of the house is where that cement patio ends, it slopes down, and my wooden picnic table that I have there, I have to put 2x4s there to level it out. So I thought at the same time, make that all flat, because then it drops down and it's straight. I don't know if all of you were there during the blizzard of '78, like I was, but the water came down in front of the house that we're talking about, and it went down 10th Road and 9th Road. Those three houses in between 9th and 10th, the water did not sit there. It sat in the piece of property out in front of me, and that's where those machines doing the wall sat. So I don't see a water problem at all, but is there any questions?
No, that's it. Sounds like a good job. Any questions from the board? Audience? Seeing that there's none, I'm gonna move that we close 455 Marjorie J. Ryan, 241 Foster Ave. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Ryan Murphy, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
I'm gonna move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's application for a variance subject to the conditions. What do they need, Andrew? To the flood, is this in a floodplain?
Floodplain bylaw, building permit, as-built, certificate of occupancy.
Perfect. Based on the findings that the applicant proposed to construct a 25 by 25 foot deck at the rear of the dwelling located at
241.
Located at 241 Foster Avenue. Further identifies on assessor's map as, what was the number?
Parcel L10-15-12.
I think I know that number
And
from my
located in
tax
the
bill.
R3
Zoning district. So the variance, what do we have to do, 1 to 7 here? Andrew? Everyone agrees with 1 through 7?
Larry Keane, I do.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, no.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
All right.
Okay.
So,
We're not endorsing the shed.
yeah, we're not endorsing the shed. So second? All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, no.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I want to thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank
Did
you.
you do the special permit too?
Good luck.
What's that?
Did you do the special permit too?
Oh, no.
What's
There's the special permit.
Move that the applicant's application for relief under 305-10.12 to construct the deck at the rear meets the criteria 1 through 10 of the granting of a special permit. Second.
Second?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
All right, I can't.
All in
read
favor?
That 110.
You're good.
That's it. Oh, we
Good
already
to
did
go.
that, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sorry.
Good luck.
No, we
Two more
closed the
things.
big one, so. who
Two more
cares?
things?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, just the minutes, right?
And there's a request for a.
Oh, the request for the
extension
extension of
modification.
time. Good. Somebody say the extension of time looks great. Solid idea. I lost my sheet. They
Who's
got a
asking for an
variance.
extension?
Who wants an extension of time here?
Oh, Beth Mahoney.
26 Island
Go ahead, you can read that.
26 Island Street.
Motion.
Requesting a one-year extension to the special permit granted October 11th, 2022, due to various delays. They also request a minor modification. They should be in front of us if they're requesting a modification. We'll grant. the
Make it
extension.
smaller.
Make it small.
Oh, they're making it smaller, okay.
I'll speak to this real quick? if you
Sure.
guys don't mind. I've been working with, this applicant for quite a while now, and she has had multiple, things, I have no problem with granting this. I can confirm that she's had several delays dealing with contractors, conservation, and other aspects of the project.
Okay, I move that we grant her a one-year extension.
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Ryan Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conley, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
And
All right.
I move that we approve the minutes for August 13th and February 22nd, August 13th, 2024, February 22nd, 2022, as written.
Okay.
Good, Larry?
Yes.
What, Nancy?
Larry Keane, second.
The minor,
All in favor?
Larry
Minor
Keane, aye.
modification? I don't think we
the
did
minor modification for Island Street.
No, we did.
I thought it was just the extension that you did.
Oh, with the extension, with the modifications, sorry.
It's okay.
And
Just wanted to get the
approval of
words.
minutes, Larry Keane,
You already said
Grover Hensley.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Ryan Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conley, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers abstain.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All
Larry
in
Keane,
favor?
aye.
Grover Hensley, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
You gonna make the debate?
Yes, aye.
Aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Ryan Murphy,
Mac Brothers, aye.
Christ, that was painful.
Just don't make
I
me
can't
say
vote
aye
on
too
minutes
when
I
you-
wasn't
Thank
part
you,
of.
Andrew.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.